Hi there, this is a short video about ablative absolutes for Latin GCSE. Now, ablative absolutes are going to use participles, so it's just worth, I think, having a quick recap on how to form a participle, which is, of course, a verbal adjective. So there are three tenses of participle in Latin: present, perfect and future, but do note that there's no present passive participle and no future passive participle. The present, therefore, only in the active, is formed from the stem of the first two principal parts. So we have parans and its genitive parantis, and it's going to mean preparing or while preparing. The PPP, which is the most common participle, the perfect passive participle, is formed from the supine, the fourth principal part of a verb, and is paratus declines like bonus and will mean having been prepared. Now, the perfect active participle is only formed from deponent verbs and is going to be the third principal part of a deponent verb. So conatus having tried. And then finally, our future active participle, also formed from the supine, but with the letters UR added between the stem and the endings us, are, also declines like bonus and is going to mean about to prepare or going to prepare. Now, what is an ablative absolute? It consists of a noun and a participle in the ablative which are not connected grammatically to the rest of the sentence, i.e. the rest of the sentence should make sense if you take away the ablative absolute. So if we have a look at an example, we have his rebus factis puer ad urbem evit. Now the part underlined is our ablative absolute, so let's just look at the other part, the main part of the sentence, puer ad urbem evit. The boy went to the city. It makes sense. Now underlined, however, we have rebus, our noun in the ablative, and factis, the participle that's agreeing with rebus. It happens to be a PPP. So we might want to translate this literally as, with these things having been done, the boy went to the city. Now, with these things having been done, though, is not a particularly stylish English translation. And the key thing with ablative absolutes is flexibility. Try to move it away from the literal translation to something that sounds right in English. Now, factis, we've said, is a PPP, so it's describing an action that has happened before the action of the main verb. So we might want to translate it as, after these things had been done, the boy went to the city. Or context might say that maybe when these things have been done, or even because these things have been done, the boy went to the city. We can see here all of these are perfectly legitimate translations of this ablative absolute, but the context of the rest of the sentence and the rest of the passage are going to help us to decide which one of these is going to fit best. Now, when the ablative absolute contains a perfect passive participle, as the last example just did, a PPP, it is worth considering whether to convert it into an active English verb. So, for example, if we have the same one again, maybe we can assume that it's the boy that has done these things. So we might want to translate it as, after he had done these things, the boy went to the city. Or when he had done these things. Or because he had done these things, the boy went to the city. You could even turn factis into another main verb. English likes to use main verbs and connects them using the word and. So maybe the boy did these things and went to the city. However, there needs to be a note of caution with this. For example, with urbe capta, cives miserimi erant, urbe is our noun, capta is our participle, both in the ablative. So with the city having been captured, the citizens were very sad. But here, we're not going to assume that it's the citizens that have done the capturing of the city. So we can't make capta into an active verb. So maybe because the city had been captured, the citizens were very sad. Now, connecting relatives are often also used in ablative absolutes. So for example, we have quibus dictis imperator urbem oppugnavit. So dictis is our participle and quibus is the pronoun that's in the ablative. Now, quibus is going to be here referring to something that has happened in the previous sentence, perhaps a previous noun, or maybe even the sentence entirely. So we want to translate it literally as, with which things having been said, the general attacked the city. So maybe after these things have been said, the general attacked the city. Note again, we've gone for after rather than with which things having been said. And we've translated quibus as these rather than which, because it makes more sense. So, ablative absolutes, however, last point, do not necessarily have to appear at the beginning of a sentence. So all of the ones that we've seen so far have been separated off by commas and have been very easy to spot, but that's not necessarily always the case. So if we have a look at this example here, senator igiter hostibus necatis discessit. Now I've underlined hostibus necatis to make it a little bit easier to spot, but here we have a noun and a participle in the ablative that aren't connected to the rest of the sentence. The rest of it makes sense. The senator, therefore, departed. But he departed because the enemy had been killed, or maybe after the enemy had been killed. So, to sum up, ablative absolutes, nice and straightforward, as long as you are prepared to be flexible. A noun and a participle in the ablative, not connected to the rest of the sentence. The best way of translating an ablative absolute that contains a PPP is going to probably be after, but there are other possibilities depending on the context of the sentence and the passage as a whole.